It's back. The Monogatari series is finally back in all of its glory, and I could not be more happy. After five years, it is finally here, and I was a little worried because me and Shaft have not been the bestest of friends lately, and I was really scared when the series is coming back that I felt like something was going to be different. But after watching the first episode of Off and Monster Season, I can officially say at this point, they're back. It's back. Monogatari series is as good as it's ever been, and I absolutely love this first episode. We got so much in this first episode. Obviously, always in the perspective of Yotsuki is always intriguing to me because she just sees things differently. The way this corpse of an apparition just sees things differently is always fascinating. Getting into concepts like death, mortality, purpose in life, all those kind of things are always intriguing to me. And yes, created a bunch of question marks in this episode. Obviously, getting more into Tsukihi is really intriguing to me because she's sort of a Pandora's box that's always been sitting there that we're not touching. And now we're finally touching it, which does have me a little afraid. I love seeing the reappearance of Hachikuchi. Always love Hachikuchi, the goddess of the area. Hachikuchi just popping up out of nowhere to save the day at the end was really great. And yes, of course, the nugget for me personally, because as you can see, here and right here, yes, my favorite character of this franchise, Nadeko, she makes a lot of appearance in this episode and getting more into how she's changed so much, which I absolutely adore. Despite the short hair now, I don't like the short hair. I'm never going to like the short hair version of her. I like her with longer hair. Hopefully, I don't know, something happens in this season that it just suddenly a growth spurt. They talked a little bit about a growth spurt in this episode, so why not have a growth spurt for the hair? I know there's a symbolism behind it, and so that's the only reason I kind of accept it. There's so much in her character that has to do with her hair. So obviously, it being short means a lot. But anyways, let's get into the episode proper. Let me get my impressions on the episode, just deep dive into it, because there's so much here that I want to chew into. And it was a long episode, so let's get into it. Opening up the episode, we get a report from Yotsuki. She's currently observing Tsukihi, who of course is the Phoenix. And yes, talking about a lot of things around Tsukihi, which honestly, this side of it, the whole thing is a little bit of a question mark for me. I did do a brief I went through a couple videos that recapped the series, so I might have misremembered some stuff here, but I don't recall them ever sort of putting Tsukihi as sort of a center point for a lot of problems. I think the series overall has sort of pointing out the idea that Koyomi himself has sort of drawn in a lot of these apparitions. And so to get a little bit of a perspective from Yotsuki that Tsukihi is always involved with all these projects is sort of interesting to me. It does say specifically that she draws in things and that she is at the center of the maelstrom. And it kind of points it out in a way that she always gets involved with things, which is one of those curious things where I'm like, oh man, I don't remember that. Like, I kind of want to go back and check out a lot of these scenes to see that. Because yes, I do acknowledge that in a lot of situations when there's a problem, she does sort of show up and say something, but it's never that she's directly involved with the problem itself. But it's sort of pointing out that the idea that she always gets involved with things, she does whatever she wants, she lives on instincts, she's a subconscious malice that involves everyone around it. Existing, it draws in other monsters to it. Always dancing in the middle of the flame, of course, something will happen, and of course that's why Yotsuki is always there in order to kill it if it needs to. Like, something that's heartless, a heartless monster that can't be mesmerized by Tsukihi should always be at its side in order to destroy its brilliant flight. Which is interesting because it really does feel like in this episode, and this is one of those interesting things about Yotsuki's character, is it always kind of treads this line with Yotsuki's character that she is a corpse, that she is an apparition, that she doesn't care about things around her. She's a robot, basically. But it's always kind of tread this line where you kind of wonder, no, you're sort of showing signs that you do have feelings and that you do appreciate things and that you're not just a soulless doll. I mean, the idea of not taking action and reporting at the end of this episode is sign enough that there's something here. You're intrigued by something, you could say that, you can claim that to make an excuse, but it does seem like you do appreciate what Tsukihi did for you. There's always these points in which Tsukihi is doing something and Yotsuki's pointing out that it's not right and then not taking action. Like she says, I can just, on a heartbeat, I can kill this thing, but I don't right now. So yeah, you can kind of claim it as that Tsukihi is technically mesmerizing her. But anyways, yes, Araragi is apparently showing up on a regular... I like this idea that Araragi Koyomi is somewhere else, and then every now and then, periodically, he's driving all the way home, not to see Tsukihi, not to see Karen, not to do something else. He's showing up randomly to give Yotsuki an ice cream. Says that Araragi's Lolita complex causes him to come there on a regular basis to give him ice cream, which she has a whole bunch of. At the very end of it, she's like, I gotta take care of these ice cream because she's got a whole bunch of it. But yes, during her time enjoying her ice cream, that's when Tsukihei just randomly decided that that day she was gonna take a U-turn and come back home and spots Yotsuki. The cat's out of the bag. She has revealed that Yotsuki is not a doll, it's actually a person. And it goes this whole I like the moment that Yotsuki sees her flop. Just flops over. Did it again at the end of the episode. Flop. I love it. Yeah, you can't trick me. You can't do all this stuff. There's ice cream everywhere. You made a mess. You're definitely alive. Stop acting like it. And going to the point of dousing oil on her and to set her on fire. But yeah, cat's out of the bag. So Yotsuki decides, at this point, I need to create a scenario where I can go back to being a doll. The cat's out of the bag. I can't have this be the case. So makes up something about being a magical girl, which I love. This is one of those moments of attention to detail where you see, like, in the backdrop, it has all these like promotional material for Madoka Magica, but instead it's Plura Magi Yotsuki Pisu. Even later on, when Tsukihei joins her, says that she wants to fight the monster too, it is turned into this whole thing where you see all this Madoka Magica actual artwork that's in promotional material that you can find, and it's Yotsuki and Tsukihei instead. So really good little attention to detail. I love that kind of stuff. I like at some point Tsukihei's like, you're a doll that's been given so much love and attention by Big Brother that you've gained a soul. You can't act like this. You're a freeloader. And Yotsuki's like, literally, that's what you are. You're a phoenix that's a freeloader. But yeah, she said that she's going to destroy the monster and then return back to doll form and go back to her dimension. And Tsukihei wants to join. So she's got to figure out a plot in order to make Tsukihei believe that they actually defeated a monster. So she goes to Nadeko. Yes, appearance of Best Girl Nadeko. I actually love this whole segment, of course, one, because I love Nadeko's character, but it's just so much insight into how much Nadeko has changed. Because yes, for those that don't remember, like, her past experiences with her has really been this idea of a character who sort of becomes passive. Become whatever people want you to become and hide what you truly want to be. And that turned it's sort of a theme for a lot of characters, bottling up things inside of themselves. And like I said, I understand the whole idea of the hair being cut is a symbolism of that, because it was her long hair that she was hiding behind. I think it was even Tsukihei was the one that actually cut it. Which would point out there that she caused a mistake that ended up causing problems. But she's obviously grown a lot, and I like to see this little insight into where she's taking her job, seriously. She's trying to do manga art. She's submitting it to companies. It's not going well. She's submitting it to websites. The ratings aren't doing well, but she's pushing. But additionally, in this whole segment, and again, this is one of those stark contrasts between Yotsuki and Nadeko, it is really kind of one of those symbolisms of having a purpose in life is important. She says something to the effect of, man, that sounds really hard. It sounds like the world is hard. And Nadeko responds to that by saying, that's a good thing. I like that the world itself is hard. Which Yotsuki doesn't understand initially, but it's not until later on when she's out there with Tsukihei that she finally understands what she was talking about. A person with purpose and a reason in life makes things more difficult because you'll have struggles trying to push towards that thing, but at least you are actually alive. Whereas somebody that has an entitled life and that everything goes their way, which, yes, was Nadeko's life, you'll lose sight on what makes you alive. You'll think that you're dreaming, which is interesting because this is one of those moments where it's like Yotsuki is acknowledging that she can't understand that. I don't have a heart to understand that kind of stuff. I'm not alive. I'm a corpse. But still, she's understanding it right here because she's putting the logic of that into words. But again, really great contrast to Nadeko's character and how much she's pushing, how much she's striving, and yes, how much she's acknowledging that having hardships is actually a good thing. She likes having the hardships of what she's struggling with. But yeah, I love the fact that Yotsuki comes in there and says, I'm a magical girl. And she's like, no, you're not. You got to be an apparition. You got to be an apparition. But yes, that's when we get the reveal in here that Nadeko actually has another apparition inside of her, which is kind of interesting because it kind of points it out that, yes, of course, she had the snake god within her. And when Kaiki showed up, and I don't think it actually mentioned it back there. I think this is the point which they're revealing this. He put a snail tofu inside of Nadeko in order to push out the snake god, which I'm kind of curious how that would work. Unless it's just simply the idea of there only being so much stuff inside of her, and he pushed it out by putting something else in there, or if specifically the snail tofu was the perfect thing to drive it out. Now, this is one of those things that I do get a little frustrated with the Monogatari series because you have to, as a English speaker and not somebody that knows Japanese text and whatnot, it is a struggle for me watching this series, and it's always been a struggle. It's not that it makes the series bad, it's just a beef that I have. You constantly have to pause whenever they have these quick flashes of text on the screen, because there's sometimes symbolism in it. There's sometimes purpose behind it. I mean, there's always purpose, but like significant purpose. I don't know specifically what the details of the snail would be, but it does have a brief moment that when the snail shows up, it flashes regret. And I wonder if the whole purpose behind the snail tofu specifically for Nadeko was to push regret into her so that she understands the importance of regret and wanting to strive for something and face difficulties, basically. So I don't know. I might have to deep dive that in some point, but that's kind of the gist that I got there. But that snail was put in there, drove that out, and now Yotsuki wants to drive that out so that she can use it for another purpose. Which I like that, because the moment that she brings up Kaiki, Nadeko kind of said, "How's Kaiki doing?" It kind of sounded like she was very interested into seeing how Kaiki's doing. For those that don't know, I love Kaiki's character. He's one of those kind of slime balls that early on you're like, oh, I don't like this guy because he's causing problems. He's giving out curses and whatnot. But at some point, it was probably the whole situation with Nadeko. But a lot of scenes with him and Hitagi, I absolutely love his character. He's just so twisted and such a clever character. But it kind of makes it feel like Nadeko has a thing for Kaiki now. I mean, it might be one of those things where she was in a really bad spot, and Kaiki technically was the one that stood up there and said, basically, you need to have purpose. You have dreams, and only you can seek out those dreams. He literally encouraged her to put aside all this hiding away and not causing problems and being passive and being what she thinks everybody else wants her to be and going after her dream. He literally pushed her to go seek her dreams, and she's happier right now because of it. So it wouldn't shock me that she might have a thing for Kaiki now. He's an old, grabby looking dude, but hey, she's going after it. I guess it's a good thing since she's not after Koyomi anymore. I don't know that Kaiki's got a wife or anything. It was kind of interesting little kind of tidbit to throw in there. But yeah, Yotsuki has Nadeko draw the snail. That way it seals it inside of paper. And she has to get super detailed with it, which totally blows up in Yotsuki's face later on, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Like, she puts too much effort into it, so it's really, really strong. Like, making flame illustrations and stuff causes problems for Yotsuki later on. They go to the battlefield, which is the park, has Tsukihi go spread the salt. And during that time, like I said, this is the moment where Yotsuki is pointing out that she realizes Nadeko's words, the idea of wanting hardship. Now, the interesting thing here is that she immediately pivots it to talk about Tsukihi. And this is a conversation that happens throughout the entire fight sequence, and to the end of it is Yotsuki acknowledging how broken Tsukihi is to normal humans, and the idea that, does Tsukihi understand that concept? Does Tsukihi understand, as an immortal, the struggles of life and how that makes you feel alive? It is sort of comparing Yotsuki herself to Tsukihi in the idea that I was once human, but now I'm a corpse, but I still understand, just based on that little fragment of my life, the concept of death, and thus having an appreciation for a lot of these things. Does an immortal understand that? It's quite fascinating. But yeah, the snail comes out. It's super powerful. It's beating the crap out of Yotsuki. She's like, literally, this is an operation that's literally built to take me down. I think she almost implies as well that Kaiki was involved with it, but it's sort of putting it that Nadeko literally drew it that way, and thus it became powerful like that. Which makes me wonder if they're going to do that going forward, like just having apparitions put into her and then enhancing them afterwards by drawing them. But yeah, eventually Tsukihi saves Yotsuki's life, which I think is the thing that kind of complicates a lot of things for Yotsuki at that point, saying she doesn't know that I'm a corpse, she doesn't know that she's an immortal, but just like Koyomi, she just gets herself involved. Almost like it's expected, she pushes Yotsuki out of the way. Like, she literally saves Yotsuki's life if she was alive, and she dies herself if she was an immortal. Which is, yes, something that I think affects Yotsuki in the end. Because yes, after everything kind of happens and Mayoi shows up and she saved the day by just fold the paper. She's like, I'm the god of the area. I got to take care of things every night. I know you're a professional. I didn't want to get in your way of a professional, but there you go. I got it handled. Put it inside her backpack. Take care. I won't tell Koyomi. I love it. It's just like she just randomly shows up. I thought she used some like crazy OP ability, but no, she's literally she just folded the paper. But the important thing here is that as Yotsuki is leaving, she's kind of pointing out that, yeah, Maui, she's not going to tell the brother. That's great. At the same time, she also kept the manuscript and returned back to the mountain. But the interesting thing here is that Yotsuki says that she made a lot of failures. She made a lot of mistakes. Yotsuki herself is saying, I screwed up so many times, and I'm not going to nitpick over a grudge. The grudge part kind of threw me off because I'm not quite sure exactly what she's referring to here. I don't remember Yotsuki ever having a problem with Hachikuchi. Now, she always, even here, she's calling her Big Sis Hachikuchi. she is a more powerful apparition than her herself. Or it might be implying the idea that she's technically older because she's a corpse back here or whatever. She could be talking about the snail tofu, having a grudge against the snail tofu, and the idea of, I'm going to let her go ahead and take the snail because I've made so many mistakes at this point. But she could also be talking about Tsukihii herself. Even despite the fact that Tsukihii just got blasted, she's still going to take her home and not do anything against her or report the whole thing because she realized that Tsukihii saved her life. I think it's probably the snail that she's talking about because the snail beat the crap out of her, but it was kind of an odd statement that kind of was thrown in there, and I'm not quite sure exactly what she's talking about when she's talking about grudge. But that's when Yotsuki takes her back home, and she points out here that, yes, she can report this, and this is probably going to be enough to really make a logical reason for the forces to come down on her. Like, just like back with Shinobu, when all the people came after her, that this is enough to make that hunt happen. But she's not going to report it. She says that she has a logical reason for it, but she doesn't really go into the details of it, so I'm assuming it's just really kind of the happenings of that day, which is Tsukihii basically putting her life on the line to save Yotsuki. And yes, additionally, to point out her own failures. She thankfully doesn't remember anything, but she did technically witness me being alive, which was a failure of my part. But the nugget of this episode was probably at the very end, that acknowledgement that Tsukihii has forgotten everything that happened. And I love this little attention to detail. At some point, it shows Tsukihii, she picks up her torn up garment. Like, Yotsuki got rid of the blood, but the outfit itself is still damaged. And so she sees it, and she immediately throws it in the trash. It's kind of one of those symbolisms of, while Yotsuki's talking about the idea of healing wounds and forgetting things, it's the same thing there. It's damaged. She wants to forget it. Whatever. Just get rid of the hardships and walk away from it. But what Yotsuki is getting out of this, which I can kind of see, is the idea that because this phoenix is able to heal the wounds of bad experiences, trauma, she's able to quickly forget about this kind of stuff. That's exactly why Tsukihii will never grow, never learn from her mistakes. And so that makes her even more dangerous in the idea that she's going to keep making those mistakes and keep causing problems for other people because her whole purpose is to kind of exist next to somebody. Currently, she's existing as Tsukihii amongst this family. And every time she runs into a mistake or causes a problem or gets hurt, she's going to immediately heal that and never learn. That's why she can't learn. That's why she's doomed to repeat it. No matter how much time passes, she barely manages to fail, and all those failures are deposed to the people around her, which again, makes perfect sense, and I can see that being sort of a threat in itself. And again, the punchline is that she does it again. She eats all the ice cream and she gets caught again. Which again, this is kind of the thing that I love but hate at the same time, is that we're finally getting into Tsukihi's character as this Pandora's box that's been sitting there for a long time now. She pops up every now and then, she gets involved with people, and then she kind of disappears. But it also makes me afraid because that whole later segment is literally Yotsuki talking about how they're going to come for her, which again, it is something that we've known for a long time now. She's an apparition. She's a very powerful apparition, and Yotsuki's there to observe her. And it's only a matter of time before they see that she is a massive threat that is drawing in danger, and they're going to have to get rid of her. Just like everything else that is a danger in the area, they will eventually send a group of people to take her down. Now, Yotsuki herself says that she can do it, but can she is a question mark. Is it going to turn one of those things that she's been with Tsukihii for so long, she doesn't want to report her, even though, again, she doesn't want to admit that. She doesn't want to admit that she does like Tsukihii, Tsukihii saved her life, and that she appreciates Tsukihii. She's been entranced by her. So, no, overall, super good episode. Really good episode. Love the chemistry, love the goofing around. Tsukihii just almost setting Yotsuki on fire. Yotsuki just collapsing like a doll every time she gets caught. Oh yeah, Nadeko mentioned the fact that she has to get in her swimsuit in order to recall all that stuff back there for a ritual. And she's like, no, I don't have to do that. And immediately gets all embarrassed, like the idea of, oh, you don't even need to wear a swimsuit. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. During the fight with the snail, Yotsuki gives up on life. And again, this is kind of one of those signs that it's not like Yotsuki is actually the soulless doll that she claims that she is. She's like, I'm a corpse. I can't understand Nadeko's desire for struggle in order to feel alive. I can't understand the idea of wanting to understand pain in order to feel alive. I can give up right now because Tsukihii is a phoenix. She won't die to this snail, and I've failed my mission anyway, so I can just die right here. But then she's afraid of death. Again, I think that Yotsuki thinks that she's just a corpse with no feelings and just an apparition with no emotion, but I think she has a lot more to her that's showing that she can understand this stuff more than she thinks that she does. So the idea of her even being afraid in the end, running away from the snail, is a sign that she's more human than she thinks she is. which is cool because earlier she was talking about how she actually does want to support people like Nadeko and Koyomi, which I don't think they've ever established that before. And the idea that she likes to support Koyomi and support Nadeko because they were once human who turned into apparitions. But unlike them, what she's similar to, she could never go back. Koyomi became an apparition and returned to being a human. Nadeko turned into an apparition and then turned back into a human. Yotsuki believes that she can't return, but she still wants to support them because they're so similar. So that was kind of interesting. It does sort of kind of flag that there's a possibility that Yotsuki at some point could be revived. Anyways, that is my thoughts on the first episode of Monster and Off Season. I'm absolutely loving this series so far. I cannot wait for more. I will probably be covering this on a weekly basis. I'm pretty sure I can probably fit it in my schedule. There's a lot of great stuff coming up today, so it's going to be difficult, but I'll probably will. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already so you can get my future videos on this and my first impressions of all the shows of the season. Definitely be a fun season overall. But additionally, if you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips, links, so thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate what it does. And until next time, y'all take care.